the lack of press. I saw somebody from the Washington Post here a little while ago.
Right, yeah.
But, you know, I thought maybe there'd be CNN and all that other kind of thing. Wow, these are big shares. I came up here to try to work on a book. And in the course of previewing interviews with as many of these people as I possibly could, admittedly, I had never heard of you before and didn't know what you were doing, what your work was about or anything. I had done research like many of the other investigators had done. And with the book, what I was trying to do was to start investigating the investigators, the people who were doing these projects, and try to just capture a glimpse of who they are. I hear a lot of you guys talking about people like John Mack and so many others. And these are people that are going to just disappear into history if somebody isn't, you know, trying to write about them a little bit. Now, I know Paula Harris has covered it quite a bit, and George Norrie has these people on as guests on his radio show. But what I'm specifically trying to do is to target a very, very young audience. Not kids, but high school and college and young professionals, because it seems to a person that every one of you is constantly repeating this theme about we need young researchers, we need new people in the field. And it's just my opinion, but I feel like that message just isn't being broadcast to the right group. And I have an opportunity. I live in Fairfax, Virginia, which is, you know, only 30 miles from here, so I have an opportunity to work with a CBS affiliate radio station that's one of the biggest talk stations in this area, and I might be able to get a weeknight show 5 nights a week. I've talked to them about a project like this for several years, and I'm in touch with the program manager right now. He has my manuscript, and he was spending time going over it. He was shocked to hear that I was coming up here and spending all my time doing this. So I'm hoping to get some audio and take it back and, you know, maybe cut it up a little bit and make something out of it and turn it into a program. And I think I'm well on my way doing that. So anyway, as I said, I wasn't terribly familiar with your work, and I became familiar with it very, very quickly. And I made this comment to you before, I hadn't planned on interviewing you. I don't have to really follow any rules here, so I was kind of just going from person to person. But I kept going back to an interview that I have with you that just piqued my curiosity completely, and it's almost the reason that I came up here. So I thought I'd ask you a few questions about it. First of all, you are in charge of the Exopolitics Institute. Is this an organization that you founded, that you run, that you're just a part of? And where is it? And what can you tell me about it?
Do you want me to talk?
Oh, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not even using the video. Okay. It's just the audio that I'm interested in anyway.
Yeah, I founded the Institute in 2005, and I had a reason for doing that because I was previously working at a university.
Right. American in Washington.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, so not that far from here.
Yeah,
I actually
sure.
used to live around here.
Sure, sure.
And what happened to me was that when they basically tried to suppress me writing about this. For a few years I told them I was interested in this, and they just said, well, you know, as long as you don't kind of mention the Institute, then it's okay. But then I got the Washington Post to kind of do a feature story on me, and that just kind of like, that was it. They just kind of like, you know, cut the association after that, and I was out of there. And I realised that this was, because it's really important as a researcher to have some kind of institutional support.
Of course it is.
You need to have, you know, resources to be able to go out in the field to do interviews or to kind of go out there. And
let me clarify this too. Were you going to whoever it is that's running American University and asking them for resources? You weren't even involving the university technically. They just were aware that you were doing this separately.
Well, initially, I did actually ask them for resources in terms of, like, I wanted to organise a meeting with Stephen Greer.
Okay.
You know, I wanted to basically organise an event where he would come, present his, you know, his information, and this was in 2002.
Right.
Kind of soon after I became interested in it, and I approached the the associate director of my centre, because I shifted from a teaching position to a research position because I kind of didn't feel that the teaching was something I wanted to do anymore, or at that time, just because I didn't believe in it anymore.
Okay.
I found out about this stuff,
Right.
ET stuff.
Right.
I thought, well, this is where there's some really interesting information, so I wanted to research
Sure.
it. And so I put my energies into that, and so I kind of shifted into a research position where I was just full-time doing my own thing.
Right.
And so I had the associate director kind of say, yeah, that's okay, as long as you related to the theme of the program, which is peace.
Okay.
Because it was the Centre for Global Peace, and I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm interested in the peace aspect of this phenomenon.
Sure.
And so I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so she said it was okay, and I kind of went ahead and organised an event for Stephen Greer to come and talk. And I wrote a paper, and I kind of showed that to the director
Right.
of the Senate, just to get his approval that, yeah, I was
Sure.
going to do this and associate the institute's name. I thought it wouldn't be a problem.
Sure.
And he looked at it and he said, I do not want the Senate associated with this. I do not want the university associated with this. This topic is not appropriate. For the university or the centre.
Were you just completely shocked at this reaction?
I was just amazed. Couldn't believe it. Because this was a really progressive university professor.
Sure.
Liberal arts. He was right out there in terms of the progressive community, but he just said, absolutely no way are you to...
Did he give you a justification?
He just said straight out, it's not appropriate for the university and the centre, and I was told that this was not something I should debate with you.
Sure.
And so I had to cancel Greer's lecture, and basically it became clear that the university was not going to provide any resources. Then later on in 2004, when the Washington Post did a feature story on me,
Right.
my position was just cut out. It was just cut. I was told I wasn't going to be renewed. The program I was working on was just summarily terminated.
This may sound like a silly question, but I mean, do you have any sort of a history of being a troublemaker professionally, anything like that? I mean, any hint whatsoever that something like this would have occurred to you?
I'd been at the university for 8 years.
Right.
Every year I had been renewed. My position was
Sure,
renewed.
of course, right.
And it was fine. I had never.
Somebody was just remarking in the other room, and I had heard this once, but I'm not as familiar with some of the work yet, about John Mack at Harvard, that this apparently had sort of happened to him, that they had tried to run him out. That's just incredible. I'm going to get back to that actually, because I had another point I wanted to make about that later. So the institute itself, the Exopolitics Institute, is located where, in Hawaii?
That's right, on the big island of Hawaii.
Okay, you live there.
I lived there, and that's where I founded it.
Where are you from, Australia?
Australia.
Yeah, okay. And the two words that jumped out at me in the interview I had heard were just promote collaboration. That's really kind of the mission, to just pull people together, right, and get them talking to each other.
Well, my main kind of vision was that I would create a 501c3 where we could then go out and apply for research grants to do exo-political projects.
Right.
And so, because I knew from my university experience that you cannot get research funding without a kind of a non-profit behind you, or an educational institution that is the recipient of the research fund. So I knew we had to do that, and I knew that by building a kind of network of researchers, that we could all collaborate on developing joint projects, use our network to kind of find the appropriate funders, and that's been kind of like the way in which we've that was the vision I had for the institute.
Right.
And as it grew, then new initiatives came up, like developing a teaching program, the Exopolitics certification program, like a journal, an online referenced journal, scholarly journal. So we did that. And then organising events like conferences and seminars, and so we've been doing that.
Right.
And of course the networking through people being part of a kind of online discussion forum.
Yep.
So we've created that as well.
And you touched on, in the interview that I heard, the UN resolution, that UN 33-426?
That's right.
Yeah. Is that, how big a puzzle piece do you consider that to be? I mean, in the overall, mission that you're trying to accomplish here. I mean, we're talking about the United Nations. We're not talking about some small organization here. That's big stuff.
Well, that decision was passed in 1978. It was a very important decision. In the UN jargon, there's a difference between a resolution and a decision.
Sure.
A resolution is kind of dealing with substantive policy issues that the UN debates, and the ET issue, UFO issue, was originally slated to be a resolution, but then it was kind of downplayed into this administrative category
Right.
of a decision.
Right.
You know, which is kind of like, well, you know, how much pay should how much reimbursement should a UN official level 14 get when he's travelling internationally?
Really
You know, that's decision
administrative.
number 456/1. You know, which is kind of an admin type decision.
I understand.
So I think it was the US that kind of like downplayed or kind of had the UN resolution that it was being debated on UFO downplayed into a decision.
Right.
But nevertheless, it still has status as a UN
Sure.
decision.
Sure.
And it's important because it talks about, or basically advocates that the UN should develop a agency for gathering information
Right.
on UFOs, and it should coordinate information concerning extraterrestrial life.
Right.
And that's important because it mentions the UN
Absolutely.
being given or giving this responsibility for gathering information from all the different member nations concerning extraterrestrial life. So it's part of the UN kind of hierarchy of decisions now that really is important.
Right.
So it is something that, as far as the Institute is concerned, is significant because it basically is advocating that research has to be done.
Absolutely.
And the Institute is a research body trying to do precisely that.
Exactly. In a conversation, I'll make this little sidebar note real quick. One of the things that intrigued me so much about talking to you is a few of the comments that you had made that sort of echo what my own research has led me to believe. And at the end of this, I wanted to ask you a couple questions that really sort of have nothing to do with the purpose of my being here. But I thought I'd mention this one since I was talking about the UN decision. I had interviewed Richard Dolan the other day, and he said he hadn't heard this. I actually stumbled across this earlier this week, but the gentleman who proposed that resolution was an official from Grenada. Isn't that correct? Okay. Did you know that I understood that the decision was sort of downplayed by the U.S. of all people, and that this gentleman had actually, I guess, gone back to the country? The invasion, the U.S.-led invasion of Grenada, are you aware that that took place only 2 days after the Beirut bombing? How the American public could have allowed an invasion of Grenada in the face of just 2 days before something like 300 U.S. Marines are blown up by terrorists in the Middle East is completely beyond me. And how the two events aren't related, I don't know. I feel like if I keep digging, I may be able to link the two somehow or another. But
Now,
I know that sounds obscure, but
the invasion of Grenada in '83 under Reagan.
that's correct. It was on October 25th, and the bombing of the Marine barracks was the 23rd.
Well, there's another really significant detail here, which is that UN decision was passed in December of 1978.
Right.
Eric Gary was the sponsor for that. He pushed that.
Right.
It was passed because of him. He had more information concerning extraterrestrial life, and he arranged to meet with the Secretary General of the UN, Kurt Waldheim,